Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our travel talk online, and also welcome to those of you who are watching on the recorded version on our YouTube channel. This morning, we're really pleased to have Mike Gamble with us. Mike is a local Leicester person who's a member of cycling club in Leicester, and he travels quite often to Singapore, and he's going to share some of his photos with us. The first part is about Singapore itself, and the second part is about cycling around the wonderful environs of Singapore. And I think that we're going to enjoy this very much. So thank you for joining us, all of you. We've got people joining from Australia and from India and from New Zealand and possibly Spain and other places. So we're truly international. And so do make a comment, do press subscribe to join our channel, and do get in touch. Okay, over to you then, Mike.
This travel talk is about Singapore, or cycling in and around Singapore. This is from my visits to Singapore, from my experiences and riding, and also I'm now an honorary member of Love Cycling Singapore, a social cycling group who are really friendly, and there are so many places to cycle around Singapore and just some fantastic views. East Coast Park is my favourite. This is about, well, it's now probably nearer 30 kilometres long, with stop-off places where you can hire bikes and you can ride along with places to take water, food, restaurants, hawker centres where you have many food stalls to choose from, and you have a sea view with palm trees, sandy beaches. Sometimes if you go early in the morning or late in the evening, you'll get wildlife such as the sea otters, and this is a great place to stop off and have a visit. Okay. These are my experiences with visiting Singapore. I have visited Singapore a few times, probably I think about 6 or 7 times, and because I've got friends there, one friend in particular as well. Just a few little bit pops about Singapore itself. It's an island. It's off the bottom of, I'll go through that in a minute, the map. Bottom of Malaysia. There's around 6 million people in Singapore. But when we don't have COVID-19, there's about 19 million tourists. Well, that's how many visited in 2019, me included. No, I didn't go last year, sorry, the year before. Spoken languages are Malay, Mandarin, Tamil, English, and what they call the Singapore colloquial English, which is Singlish. So it's a bit of a mix between English and other bits, if you like. There's 278 square miles. It's not a massive place. I think it's probably on par with the Isle of Wight on there. The currency is the Singapore dollar, but you can get your money changed in banks mainly. I think there are money shops as well, and at the airport, although that's not a good idea. So they will take other currencies, but usually they like Singapore dollars in their own. The person who's having their breakfast, if they could put the mute on, would be nice. I think everybody should be muted. The weather, well, that's a different story. Compared with the UK today, that is cloudy, misty, wet and damp. Well, it's drying out a bit now. Basically, it's tropical. It's hot and wet, or hot and dry. There are some, this is from the official website saying this, the seasons. In my experience, when I tend to go around December time, it can be very hot and humid. Um, so yeah, it takes a while. It takes me usually about a month, but just as I'm about to leave, I get used to the weather. So definitely shorts and so on. And so on. The food, you can get almost any food in Singapore. Like UK, there's also all kinds of food you can find anything if you look. My usual one is Singapore chicken rice. That's chicken with rice. That's a special that's in there. But you can get all kinds of Chinese, Korean, Japanese, anything you like. This just shows this is a map just showing the route, a possible route. There's different airlines take different routes, but you can see Singapore is about 6,000 miles away. In that respect, it's just at the bottom of Malaysia, and you've got all the local countries, the Philippines, Vietnam, Thailand. Indonesia is very close. It almost touches. There's islands. You can take a boat trip across to Indonesia or the Indonesian islands quite easily. Okay, one more. This is Singapore itself, showing it's like a little river between Singapore and Malaysia. It was all a British protectorate or colony, and they broke away from Malaysia to form their own colony. I don't know the full history, I haven't genned it up, but basically you will notice, or you will see at the times, there's lots and lots of English names in there. But there's also Malay names, Indian names, and Chinese names. So it's quite multicultural in the naming of Singapore. It's an island. There's an island to the top right of your screen, Tekong Island. That, I believe, is owned by the military. You cannot go. However, Pulau Ubin Island, you can take a little boat ride. I have been. It's very green and jungly. You have to watch the saltwater crocodiles in there if you venture in too far. At the bottom of the island, there's where it says Singapore Botanic Gardens, is the Singapore city. It's the main part of Singapore, if you like, for the city and everything there. And Sentosa Island is like a fun island, and so on, which you have theme parks and this sort of thing in there. Universal Studios are in there, and so on. So that's the island itself. I've been to most places within the island, and it is even the centre here, walking through the jungle, which I'll have a few photos of that shortly. This is places to visit and see. Well, into the main part. Gardens by the Bay is fairly new. In this case, it was closed off slightly during a daytime walk. If there's a big function, they may restrict certain parts. But you've got these huge structures that are like ornamental trees, but then they have grown lots of trees. This is on reclaimed land, which when I first visited Singapore, it was just a piece of waste ground they'd reclaimed from the sea. But you get lots of art in here, structures, rock formations and so on. I'm just looking for the arrow again. Here's another one, which is quite impressive. The head with the big hat, and so on. You'll notice that there's lots of palm trees, trees that flower, some strange flowering, and so on, which is really quite nice. Lots of lakes and small rivers, ponds, pontoons for you to walk around, and so on. It's a very nice place. This, I believe, is the theatre. I've not been inside, I must admit, but you can see this from the park. And there are walkways all around, some raised, some at high level. There are lots of flower beds with like orchid type flowers and so on. In the background, you can see a particular hotel, which I'll come to shortly. But Gardens by the Bay is well worth a visit. As it gets dark, they start turning the lights on, and it becomes a different scene altogether. This is these photographs are taken. I took them from a bridge, slightly cockeyed, but never mind. And it's the view from the bridge that goes from the park into the Marina Bay Sands Hotel, which is the famous hotel with a ship design on the top. That's looking towards the city, with all the city buildings, high-rise modern buildings lit up, and you can see one of the towers of the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. As such, this was getting dark, and that's looking up just as it's starting to get dark at the three towers of the hotel. And then the main feature is the ship on the top, which is straddles the three towers. At that point, you're on floor 53. For those that do not like heights, it's very tall. When you come out of the gardens, you come into the hotel, looking one each way, and all the rooms are situated on the outside. At the bottom, there's a casino, which I believe was free, probably is free to foreign passport holders, but I believe it costs the Singaporeans, they have a tax, about $50 or $100 to enter. I confess I haven't been inside. Not really bothered about that. If you pass through the hotel, you come to a big shopping centre and outside arena. And this where people were gathering for, I think it's daily, or was daily, not now, during the virus. But there's a water theme, fountains and so on, which was people gather. And this was the view people were starting to gather. We went to see the fountain show as such. The purpley looking building there is an observatory. Yeah, I think you have to, there's certain times you can go in to look at the stars, etc. And so on. It's a very nice area. From the top of the hotel, you get some magnificent views of Gardens by the Bay, of the closures here. And all these lights at the top of the screen are all ships. And then it has a huge, because it's a stopping off port, has a huge harbour area. And I'm told there can be up to 1,000 ships in any one time. So you look out at the sea and you think, oh, it's another city. But actually it's not, it's a city of ships. And the roadways going below. And there's a pool, a swimming pool on the top of the hotel at 53 floors. It's an infinity pool, as you can see. You can see the edge of the pool just drops away. There is a small catchment area below, and there are guards to stop you leaping off, such. And that's the city from the top, from the edge of the pool. No, not the edge of the pool, up at the front of the ship, I think, on that one. And this is Clark's Quay, an area, or I believe it's around this area. And it's a nice area with bars, and you can get drinks and so on, and everything, the nightlife at the bottom. You can see the picture. I'm just looking for that. Oh, there's me. That's in the daytime. I did swim in the pool. I don't think I dare put a picture of me swimming in the pool. It's very long. It was getting cloudy, and if you are swimming, they'll ask you to leave the pool when the lightning arrives. There's a lot of thunder and lightning in Singapore, being tropical. That's another view. Now you can see all the ships there, but this stretches to the right. It will go round to the docks and the ports, and there's cruise liners centre there. And to the left, if you follow it round, it becomes the East Coast Park. And I'll come to that more about cycling later. Beautiful place to walk, and the ships will stretch for miles to the left. That's looking on top of it, and it's a deck. It's got a wooden deck, just like a normal ship. They do have glass screens, and I have had one or two that have lost all their money in the casino, and in the past apparently one or two took the plunge. So they do protect you and stop you doing that anymore as much as possible. Below, this is the shopping centre and food court. This is only a very small part of it as such, but there's plenty of places to eat at the bottom, and then you've got all the shops around the top, and there are shops to spend as much as you can spend. Trust me, all the other ones. Here's the observatory and the lily pond underneath during the daytime. It's nice to have a walk around and so on. Shout out if I'm going too fast. There's a lot of photographs. It's one of the lilies in flower. It's quite a peaceful place. Well, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of area to wander around. And that's the famous merlion. If you can see that, it's the screen there. It's a body of a head of a lion and a body of a fish, basically. Because Singapore, as it was, the Malay name, was Lion City. So city on the sea as such. And there's one of the tourist boats. You can go around the harbour and this sort of thing and take a boat trip as well, if you so wish. To get across to the other side, you can cross the Helix Bridge, which is a stainless steel structure, and a helix cycled across that as well. But yeah, I think you're supposed to walk really, but in quiet times they don't bother. And that's looking back from Clark's Quay, where all the entertainment is and so on, and traditional houses, which were at the bottom, were trading houses, a bit like Docklands in London, looking back at the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. Here we are. These are the traditional houses. I'm trying to move the mouse slowly across. They cannot be knocked down now. They've been preserved because it's the heritage of Singapore's trading in the olden days. One of the main streets for those that like shopping is Orchard Road, and you've got all different shopping centres such as Tangling Mall, and there's lots of them. And again, it's quite an expensive experience if you really want to, but it's a very pleasant experience. One of the best ways of getting around Singapore is by the MRT, Mass Rapid Transport System. And these are situated all around the island and across the island. They're adding new lines each year, but they go to the main parts, and it's an integrated travel system where each station usually has underneath a bus depot, or at least bus stands and taxi ranks, and many of them have shopping centres so that you can go home, do your shopping, or rather go do your shopping on the way home, or get lunch and so on. You have to be careful. There is no smoking, no eating or drinking, no flammable goods, and the other one is the durian, the smelly fruit, smells like rotting flesh. No durians. Just to warn you, their rules are quite tight. That's looking inside a modern station underground. A lot of the MRT line is good to visit and buy a day pass or an EZ card, Easy Link card, it's called sometimes, because the city part will be underground. All the surrounding areas, you get good views around the island by MRT. Some places to visit are, well, one of them is Chinatown, where it's a mainly Chinese area. These are all apartment buildings, and they are reasonably tall. I forget, about 20 stories, I think. And all the shopping area and traditional Mandarin spoken, probably, but English as well. And of course, all Chinese goods and food as well. That's going down into another part of Chinatown, which has got a covered area, because when it rains, it really rains. Quite frankly, if you take an umbrella, it'll probably be bashed down when it really the heavens open. People just tend to flock into the shops and so on and wait. Usually it lasts only probably an hour or maybe 2 if you're unlucky. Hence the umbrellas. This is another part of Chinatown, in a wet part. That's not my photograph, I've pinched that one. That's same as this one. At night it lights up, and then of course they bring out the tables and chairs, and lots to eat, enjoy and do some shopping. Another part is Little India. It's another part of Singapore, with an mainly Indian area with lots of temples, etc. You're not always allowed to take photographs inside the Chinese temples and the Indian style temples. Little India has traditional shopping areas as well, and along these shops they look like the shop fronts, but actually they're little alleyways, so they're covered. They made, I think it was a British idea to have, because of the weather, covered ways you can walk along either outside or inside, away from the shade or the rain. And inside some of the shopping areas you can buy all manner of goods. These are mainly traditional incense and garlands and this sort of thing for good luck. There's lamps, lanterns, clothing, just about everything for sale. Especially if you like light tops and so on, because the weather's very hot and humid, it's really good. This is a picture from a friend's home. These are government homes, housing, government HDB areas, government housing. Some of the buildings are actually, when I got there, I was amazed. I thought they look so pristine, look new, and yet you can tell they're actually quite old in many cases. They build new ones all the time. But the strange thing is, they have to pay a kind of a levy, maintenance, and they're painted frequently. So although Singapore has some quite older areas, they look really nice and pristine. I mean, that's the beauty of Singapore. It's fairly crime-free, and everywhere just looks amazing. And the one thing you will notice is the black and white lines that are painted along the pavements. I think that came back from the British era. Got the black and white edging stones to the roads. It's quite a feature of Singapore. This is Kranji, where, as you are probably aware, Singapore during the World War II was taken over by the Japanese, and this is a British and Commonwealth war graves. At Kranji you can go and visit, and the memorials here, there are lots. There's people died fighting for Singapore. I wanted to take a visit. I did find a Gamble name amongst them. I didn't trace the person, but it's quite a solemn place, and it overlooks the strait between Singapore and Malaysia, where the Japanese came across. So it's quite a moving place. Another place to visit is the Botanical Gardens. It's not far from all the embassies. There's a particular road, I can't remember the name. You walk along by a lot of the foreign embassies and into the Botanical Gardens, which again is well worth a visit. Just looking for the, lots of very old and tall trees and so on. It's paved, so you know it's easy to walk around, and lots of little statues and all kinds of things to see. Beautiful fan palms, and many plants. I didn't take a huge amount of photographs. There are woodland walks near the centre of the island where you can literally go in and be close to nature as such. And there are some houses that border on this, and in this particular occasion, the monkey on the fence, he had a mate at the other end of the fence with a dog and inside the garden. The one would jump down, the dog would chase him, and when he got to the other end, the monkey would run up on the fence and his mate would run down and tease the dog. So quite amusing, really. There are lots of monkeys around the islands. They're not very large, but you don't really want to get close. They are very strong, and they hang around waiting for you. And this is a bridge within the central area. I believe Barclays Bank paid for some of this. I'm trying to think of the name of the bridge, but it's a treetop walk. So you actually get views across a forest and so on, and the jungle in there. I was warned by wardens in the area, if you've got cameras or anything, handbags, whatever, hanging from you, be careful, the little beggars will come and steal it, take it up into the trees. They don't really want it, they just, I think it's a bit of a game, but you have to be a bit careful. Another walk across the city is a boardwalk, but it's high up, giving you nice views of modern architecture near the sea. These are private condos, as such, very modern. And I'll move on to the food. There's all kinds of food. This is a Chinese style, Chinese dumplings, steamed dumplings, different varieties. Rice wrapped in leaves, glutinous rice, so it's quite sticky and so on. One of my favourites. Sweet and sour pork, all different types of pork and hot chili sauces to go with it if you wish, and so on. Some of the food. That's I don't think that's not Singapore chicken. It's just a chicken dish, but it's very popular around there. In and around Singapore, there are lots of food courts. They're called hawker centres. And each of these little places have a different style of food, from Western, Asian, UK style food, I'll say. Fish and chips may not actually be the same as our fish and chips. But you get Korean, Japanese, all sorts of food. And they bring it to the table to you. And they have drink stalls as well. Hot tea, cold tea, all sorts of drinks. Alcohol if you want, beer. But these are, you find many of them around the island. Many are open air, and they're just communal eating areas. This is I've pinched this from the website, but I did visit at the far end of the island near the airport. There's a village of Changi. It's got some thing on it now, which is a museum regarding World War II. I won't go into too much of the what's inside. Some of it's a little shocking, what the Japanese got up to, shall I say. But again, if you'd like to know some of the history of the World War II, what happened, we all know about Changi prisoner of war camp. Was British or enemy soldiers kept there, including and also civilians as well. Right. Whilst I was in Singapore around 2010, probably before that, I was starting to learn that Singapore, like most countries, were getting a problem with their population growing in physical size and health problems and so on. And they had a lot of parks in Singapore for people to enjoy walking, taking exercise and so on, a bit of jogging. And you can cycle in the parks and on the paths. However, the government decided that they would put in park connectors, as in cycle paths that connected different parks, which is good. So they started this program. There was also I looked online and I found a cycle group called Love Cycling Singapore. And I got online and able to ask them, could I join them for a ride? And I'm now an honorary member of that. These are some of the main part called PCNs, Park Connector Network. So these are PCNs, and they are in various areas, but actually all over the island, there are many, many cycle paths. So cycling in Singapore has become a lot better in the last 10 years. This is looking at some of the different cycle routes. The red ring around the island is a kind of designated route that you can actually circumnavigate the island. However, there are parts that are still under construction, and you have to be aware that they are literally under construction. So the top end of the island, Punggol, Pasar Ris Park and so on, there are parts there, but you have to go along local roads to join it up. So basically, when I first went to Singapore, I was staying in an area called Woodlands, which is the top of the island on this map. And when I joined I started riding with my girlfriend Jenny, trying to encourage her to take up a bit of cycling too for good exercise. And we found a route to the Woodlands waterfront, because there's lots of waterfronts, but this is an area where there's a cafe and a little restaurant area. And at night time, it's quite nice through a park. The Admiralty Park is the Admiralty area. So I then decided to join this group, but they were meeting down at near the bottom of the island on the East Coast Park, which to me is one of the most beautiful riding areas you could ever find. But it did mean I had to make a 40-kilometre trip along the roads, Thompson Road and Upper Thompson to Lower, all across, and then across here, and then back to meet them at a designated meeting point of a cafe or a restaurant area. So I did 40k across the island, which hastened to add people. I was asked about the roads. Motorists are a little bit, buses and trucks, to be honest, mostly are good. However, cycling, watch out for the cars, and taxis especially do not like cyclists. And unfortunately, I'm near the city area. I came down one road that worked into 6 lanes each way, and I was in lane number 2, pedaling like mad on a mountain bike. Shall we say, taking my life in my hands. So I'll move on to photographs. Oh dear, it's me again. I borrowed this bicycle. I think this is the one that was a Chinese-made one, and when I went up a little rise, I stood up on the pedals, only to find the pedals bent. So I had to stand on it the other way and bend it back. Hence, I then had to go to a shopping centre and purchased a mountain bike that both Jenny and myself could use. And I joined this group. This is not the night I joined them, but another occasion on a Sunday. Like in the UK, they have weekday rides or evening rides in the week, and then a Sunday ride. This is a social cycling group, so it's not racing. They have little groups branch off for racing, and they meet up, and this guy was giving a talk about the etiquette for the club, how you ride, the safety rules and this sort of thing. Follow directions from certain ride leaders, as I do with Leicester Spokes in the UK. You get all kinds of bicycles on this group. Some people have very expensive taste, like a Lamborghini. Goodness knows what that cost. A lot of folding bikes, because they can take them on the MRT. You can carry them, you cannot push them. This is a German bike, a birdie bike, that has suspension front and rear. You can just see a bit of the bicycle we purchased. The Arcia Italian-made bike. This is Matthew, and he likes to take Max, the dog, on his bike. Max goes to most places. This is called a fat bike, meaning the fat tyres. They're up to between 4 and 5 inches across. Huge tyres, and he dresses this bike up in all kinds of guises. We cycled in this group on this particular Sunday, across to the bottom of the island where Sentosa Island and Universal Studios are, and had a group. It was early in the morning, so it was fairly quiet, and they like to take lots of photographs, the group. As such, as you can see, they're all like to line up and have the photographs. We even went up the escalators carrying your bikes in most cases. One thing you will notice, there's a lot of Bromptons. Bromptons in Singapore. There's a Brompton cycle club in Singapore, and we met one night and there was over 100 Bromptons there. Oh, lots of messages. What's this? I'll just read a quick. All right, okay. That's me in front of the Merlion with the bicycle that we purchased, the Alcea, Italian-made cycle, mountain bike. And there's Matthew on the beach. This is part, this area was a condo area. It's been built on an island, I'm not sure the name, near Sentosa Island. It's very upmarket, and they've got lots of beaches around there. And obviously on a fat bike, you can cycle across the beach, no problem at all. These are the kind of weird and wonderful shapes they make of these private condos with their special balcony, floating balconies and so on. We were riding around. Another way to have it is have a trailer and have Boss on it. Boss is the dog, by the way. They've always got the tongs out because it's extremely hot, and he keeps being fed water. But they the pets kind of enjoy it. So there, one evening on an evening ride, we met up with some myself, Jenny, and friends, and so on. Most had birdie bikes or Bromptons, etc. And they've got tinsel on because this was December, and it was, I believe, December 27th, I think this was, on one of the nights. So we met up there, a small group. Some have handbag pets, Snoopy on the bag, and we met up with 100 Bromptons and various other bikes. I think there must have been about 150 riders that night. And this is riding under that funny looking building, which is the a theatre, I believe, but I'm sure Jenny will correct me if I'm wrong. We all had lights and so on. And of course the city is all lit up at night time, and we rode into the city itself. This is part of Orchard Road, and they have fantastic light shows and all the decorations along Orchard Road. Every year it's a different theme. Obviously we didn't get involved with the truck as such, and they have lots of Christmas trees and so on. I forget this, there's a particular badge on this t-shirts. I think they're the Brompton Club. They're the Owl, the Brompton Owls apparently. But it was a nice evening, everybody's having fun. This is different parts of Orchard Road. We had to share the pavement here, which is actually not a cycleway, I hasten to add, but we did it. Lots of Bromptons lined up and so on, taking photographs at every opportunity you can. All the shops are all lit up. Excuse me. On a Sunday, another ride, they have themed rides, as we do in Leicester with Leicester Spokes, some of them, and this one was about the murals. There's lots of art on the walls. They're not quite as bad as our graffiti. They are actually quite good works of art, and we were going around visiting different areas that had these murals, like the chap on the window pouring the coffee into the coffee cup and so on. Everybody wants their photograph taken in front of them. Oh, another one of me looking back at the city, and the Marina Bay Sands is in there. This is the wheel.
Mike, we've lost your screen sharing.
Oh, that's odd.
I can only see you.
Right, I'll try again. Is it there now?
Oh, it must be me.
I think everything's okay.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
Is everyone all right now?
hopefully.
Carry on, Mike.
Yep, right.
That's
So,
okay.
yeah, that's called the Singapore Flyer, the Ferris wheel. This is a lake area with little water fountains and so on. As you can see here, one guy's got white tyres on his bicycle, just for fun. And I think it was kind of, it wasn't a bamboo frame, but there were various machines around. But cycling, even in this is a new development, private development, they have their own pools, etc. But most of these, if you follow my mouse, along the bottom there, under the road bridges, there's PCNs, these park connectors that connect each little living area along. So you can actually go right across the city to various areas using the PCNs. Just to show, that was kind of just show more housing, and they are connected, they're building these. This area is across a barrier from the marina towards the sand, Marina Bay Sands, where you can actually cycle across and join up with the East Coast Parkway, which looks like this. There's a walkway, a running path, and a cycleway. And at night, it's all lit up. They've got lights. Every so often, they have a water station. We have a water fountain, tools. So if you need a repair, it's quite well set out, and really a wonderful place to ride. In most cases, there's two ways to ride. It's a full road, really. You only meet service vehicles or anything very rarely. And this is the sea. Behind us are the ships. And you ride along the coast for 25 kilometres. Really nice. The hawker centres are along the way. Oh, and occasionally you get some wildlife. These are sea otters. I took a picture of the sea otters with my phone, unfortunately, not the camera. So it's not, I couldn't get him so close. If you go very early in the morning, quite often there's anything up to 50 animals, and they'll come right really close to you. They're not kind of frightened, and they've got the babies with them and this sort of thing, little kits. And there's all kinds of wildlife. This is the view of the beach that's alongside this area. There's barbecue areas, beach all the way along, and of course all the ships out there to watch, and so on. Various different cycling here. And on the East Coast Parkway, on that particular day, I cycled across in the late afternoon, met them for an evening ride, rode all the way around the island to the Changi Airport, where you will arrive, along by the runways, which is a little bit scary when an A380 comes into land. It's very noisy. And a hawker centre at the end, and then rode back. And they were quite worried that I was going to do another 40k at midnight back across the island. But Jenny came with the car and took me back. I was quite willing to do it, which would have been about 150k that night. You know, mad Englishman as such. This is another day ride, but this one is by a reservoir, and they go along the roads and along the PCNs. And this is overlooking the reservoir. So it's a Sunday ride, and a different year. I think this was 2018 I did this one. And they visit housing areas where they've got interesting things to look at. The children's play area is a big ant. Would you believe? They have spiders, ants, all sorts of things. A cricket, sorry, it's not an ant, it's a cricket, this one. The ant's further around, it was in a black thing there. But they all stop to take photographs every so often. So if you get a chance to go to Singapore for a few days and you want to do some cycling, along the East Coast Park and some shops elsewhere, there are at least 3 24-hour cycle hire places. And we did actually hire a tandem once. That's when I realised I could feel in the pedals when Jenny stopped pedalling. But we hired a tandem, and I've hired bikes in other small shops, and you can hire them for up to 24 hours in a go. You just keep it and then ride. They do have the OFO bike and a few others where you have to register on your phone and your credit card. But I found it was easier to go to a bike shop and just hire another machine. Oh, my friend Passoon, he was the leader of this ride. And they're a really friendly bunch, but you can find them. This is where Jenny lives. In fact, there she is riding the folding bike. And there's lots of parks, as I said, that you can follow the park connectors. And this is an evening. We went out for a ride all around the lakes in different areas of a park. Quite a large park, I hasten to add. And you get all kinds of views of structures and so on, pagodas, around parks as well. So there's lots and lots of places to go. For the future, there's a new green corridor, which I've walked a little bit of it. We walked a little bit, but they're trying to make it into a cycleway right across the island, using an old Malay railway that was built from Malay in the Malay time before it became Singapore. It's mostly overgrown, and as you can see in this picture, when it rains and it's just a path, it's quite rough. Taking a little folding wheel with 10-inch, in fact they're probably 8-inch wheels through the mud is probably quite a challenge, but they'll get you through. And this is their vision of building through residential areas raised cycleways and so on. There is a nice one that's a big circle around, huge circle around a huge road traffic island that spirals up from the floor and gets you across in a nice big arc. Really nice. But I don't think I've got a photo of that. I couldn't find the photo of that. And this one, I say they're building this at the moment. So for the future, this is what we will have. That was the end of my photos there. Do we have any questions before I can move to some more photos? But
there are a couple of questions, Mike, on the chat. Helmet not mandatory then is one question from Hannah.
Actually, if you go with the Love Cycling Singapore group, it is mandatory that you have a helmet, but the law in Singapore is not mandatory. It could change because they're trying to make it law, but usually if you hire a bike, you hire a helmet with it. Yeah, and they'll usually give you a lock as well. Does that answer the question?
I think someone asked about the distance, Mike, of the cycleway around the perimeter of Singapore Island. How far is that?
I've never done it. Apparently there is a challenge once a year where the club actually run water stations and so on, and they do this challenge. I think it's around 120 miles.
Right.
Depending on how much it twists and turns, because some parts of it are not complete. When it's complete, it'll be less, because hopefully you'll be able to move around the coast more. But I believe it's just over 100 miles. So it's a whole day ride.
Thank you.
Our spokes do once a year when we're not locked down. Any other questions?
And then somebody asked about when you were doing about the food.
Right.
I guess like anywhere now, there's plenty of vegetarian and vegan food everywhere, is there?
Yeah, plenty of vegetarian food. Yeah.
And how is Singapore doing for the coronavirus situation? Do you have any idea about that?
Yes, they started off very well. Because Singapore is tropical, and it was mentioned in our news, Singapore is tropical. The heat kind of kills the virus a lot better. Right. Singaporeans appear to have thousands catching it, but not dying, which is really weird. They are in lockdown, but as of end of this month, they are about to come out of lockdown. They did come out at one stage and then have to enforce it again. But strangely enough, they have a lot of foreign workers from India. And these young men, mainly young men, they put them up in dormitories, and of
Mm.
course it went round like wildfire. So they
Mm.
had hundreds and hundreds of people going down every day with the virus, but
Mm.
strangely they're not dying. They had very few deaths. Singapore did very well.
So it's essentially an island. There's one city on the island. It's a really small country, bigger than Vatican. It's about, like you were saying, sort of like probably like I don't know what it is, like 40 miles across or something. But it's an
Yeah,
island
it's probably not
and
40 miles.
and it's
I did 40 kilometres
connected by a
across.
bridge. And they used to be part of Malaysia, but then again,
We're talking of it.
and their own country. So it's like
Mhm.
while
Okay,
ago.
there's a question here.
It was like
Sorry,
the main.
breaking up a bit actually. If you could you post on the chat the question or the comment?
Yeah, you were breaking up a lot there. I was struggling to hear you.
Yeah, Mike. There's a question about the power station. There must be a huge power station. What is the fuel and where is it imported
Oh, my
from?
word. There are 2 or 3 power stations actually. I think the power stations are coal, or one of them is at least coal. I'm not sure exactly, and that's off the top of my head because I could see cooling towers. There's not a lot of natural energy there because they haven't got the space for solar. You can have it on the buildings, but there's just we can't have solar farms as we do here. And there might be a nuclear power station, but I've got a feeling there was not. I'm not sure. I'm afraid you'll have to Google that one.
Okay.
Sorry about that. Oh, screen sharing has stopped. Oh, all right.
I guess we're about to shut down any minute.
How are we for time?
I'm trying to share my screen again. I'm going to go to.
We're okay, I think. If you, I mean, Pete, how long have we got, Pete?
Just ask
Right.
a question.
That's right. If you want to, if you've got some more photos, Mike,
No,
we'd
I'm going
love
to give you some
see
more
them.
photos if I can.
Yeah, that
This is along Orchard Road. As such, I'm just going to pick out 1 or 2. Oh, here's Max in his little trailer. The dog goes everywhere. He has various trailers for various days. So he has his taxi there.
Oh, buggy like that.
He's got lots of different things, and he seems very, very happy to do this. There's another one that might be of Yoda, a mural on the wall we visited. I wasn't putting too many photos in because I wasn't sure how quickly we'd go through them. I think on these I've gone through quite a lot, and these murals are spaced out all over Singapore. They're not in one place, so you literally need to bicycle and ride along. I don't have anything with power stations or anything like that. There isn't. I believe this is a Malay palace that we visited. Yep, Malay Heritage Centre, but it was originally a very posh house. For that, ones I haven't.
it looks amazingly. It looks amazingly clean and tidy everywhere. I mean, are the streets clean? Is it?
Yeah, that's why I showed you the pictures of the housing areas. Even though they are government housing, they're not like our council estates as such. They are very, they're being maintained all the time. Hence, the Indian workers, at the moment, they say the grass is growing very high and the trees and bushes and things, because they're in lockdown still. These 3 dogs were just wandering up and down, got the hats on as such. They're all having the photos. They were very calm and quiet, although they were probably very hot, to be honest. And that's Orchard Road again, that one. Any more questions? I'll keep pulling up different.
Jenny asked one.
So this is a minor road, or not a minor, a main road, but it's not a motorway. As you can see, there's actually 4 lanes of traffic there. So you do, if you want to turn right, you have to be quite careful. You know, you can, many cyclists on the road, but there are also a lot of problems.